Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with camera fundamentals, and this is the final part before we jump onto the actual creation of the cinematic shot for this fruit bowl. And yeah, it's just there's actually just one thing that I want to talk about. Let me delete those guys right there real quick. Let's jump onto our camera panels. Look to selected. This is of course our camera, and again, there's two important things that we need to understand about cameras. Cameras are the way in which the audience is going to see the world. So we as directors, we as the artists, we decide what the audience is going to be able to see. Do we want them to see like a really far shot, a really close shot? We're going to talk about composition in the next chapter, but it will give us a lot of different ways to communicate whatever is on our scene. As for the camera itself, one of the most important things that we have to take into consideration is something called the I just forgot. It was on the top of my tip of my tongue. It's the lens distance, but that's not the lens. Focal length. There we go, focal length. Sorry about that. There we go. So focal length, and this is a concept that everyone has on their minds. Like, we understand what focal length does, but we sometimes don't know all of the technicalities of it. So in traditional cameras, we have, of course, the lenses, and the lenses will focus all of the points of the image, or all of the light in the image, into a specific point, which is this one right here. And then from that specific point, the image is going to be flipped onto the sensor, and then the sensor, of course, is going to flip it again so that we can see the image, right? Like, it's very similar to how our eyes work. Now, the distance between the point where everything is focused and the sensor itself is called the focal length. The bigger the lens, the bigger the distance, and therefore the bigger the focal length. And how does this changes the way that we or the way that the camera is gonna work? Well, we generally have three types of lenses. We call them the wide lenses, the photo lenses, and I'm just gonna call them the traditional lenses. So our eyes work in the sort of traditional lens sort of distance. And you can measure this distance by using millimeters. This one right here, focal length, as you can see right now, is set to 35. So if you go from 35, I would say, to something like 70, we're working in something that's like a very normal traditional perspective. So for instance, if I go to 55, important thing here is we're not moving the camera. The camera is still in the same place, the same location in the world, but the way that the image is going to look is going to be a little bit different. Look at this. It kind of looks like we went further in, right? Like if we zoomed in, but we didn't. The only thing that changed was the focal length. And the more we increase the focal length, like if we go to 80, it's going to look like we're focusing or zooming in even more. But again, the camera is not moving. We're just changing the way we're receiving all of this information. The other way around, if we go lower to something like a 24, the camera is going to expand and we're going to see more of the scene, but we're going to be farther away. Technically, we're not moving again, but it's gonna look like we're farther away. And we can go all the way down to something like 14. It's gonna be really distorted. We're gonna get like a very nice like fish eye lens effect, where things on the borders are really distorted, and the image here is gonna be really small. So that's pretty much the way the focal length works. I'm gonna show you a couple of examples real quick. But if we were here on this road and we start taking different pictures, you can see that depending on the kind of focal length that we're using, we're going to be able to focus different parts of our scene. The higher the focal length, the more specific we're going to go. I love using this image right here. So as you can see, we're in the middle of a field and we're not moving places. We're in the same place. The only thing we're changing is the type of lens that we're using. So when we zoom in per se, what we're changing is changing the distance of the focal length, and now we're focusing something that's farther away, but we're not seeing as much of the picture. And if we go with a really low focal length, we're going to see more of the scene, but with less specific points, right? Now, as we move forward in this series, we're going to be using different kinds of focal lenses, but for this one right now, one of the ones that is going to work really well is a 55 focal length. The 55 focal length is one that I like to use a lot for portraits, and it's a really, I would say, flat effect. It's not going to be super flat. It's not like an orthographic front view or anything, but it's going to be quite flat. So let's move the camera a little bit, just rotate and give it like a nice composition, something like this. I want to have a little bit of space up here. And now if we take a render, what we're gonna see is this right here. So we have an interesting composition. We have our main focus, which is of course the fruit bowl. Let's turn on the light. Now we're gonna be combining lights. So I'm gonna go back here to the intensity. And when we turn this on, what's happening now is we're combining the HDRI light that we have, which is giving us this very nice reflections on the fruit, and we're combining the artificial or like CG light that we added on top to get this very nice effect. Now, I'm going to save this image real quick. Let's stop and save. That's a 55 lens. Now, again, I'm not going to move where my camera is. I'm just gonna change the focal length. Let's go really low to like an 18. And if we render now, what's gonna happen is it's gonna look like we're seeing more of the scene, but we're not really focusing that football, right? It looks like it kind of looks like an establishing shot where the movie's starting or something, and we're going to be pushing in or zooming in, and then we're going to be, of course, looking at the fruits. But there's a lot of space, and compositionally wise, it might not work because it's very empty on the outside. And the other way around, if we go for something like a 90, which is really, really close in regards to focal length, we're going to be super closed up. And as you can see, the shot looks like it's very, very cluttered, right? Like a little bit claustrophobic, where we can't really breathe and we can't really appreciate everything because things are just flowing everywhere. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to be very careful about, and that we need to check whenever we're doing our compositions and preparing our shots, because depending on what type of lens we use, we're going to be able to obtain different results. In movies, what often happens is directors will animate this. So we could, for instance, well, they wouldn't animate, right? They would record and be changing it as they go. But we can start, for instance, with a really low focal length, like an 18. I'm going to right click and set a keyframe. And then in 100 or in 200 frames, we're going to go all the way to like a 55, right? So what's going to happen now is that we're going to have this sort of like push in. Again, we're not moving the camera. We're not moving the camera towards the center of the image. We're just changing the focal length, and we're going to get this illusion of how the perspective is changing, and now we're focusing the football without having to, again, to move. So we are going to talk about camera movements as well in the next couple of chapters, but it's very important that you understand that depending on which focal length you use, you are going to be getting a different result. There's a couple of other things I want to talk about here, but I think I'm going to wait until chapter 2. Down here on the camera shape, there's this Arnold tab where we can actually modify the camera to make it work a little bit more like a traditional camera would, with shutter speed, focus distance, aperture size, aperture blades, stuff like that. Where again, I'm gonna not go in depth right now because it's a little bit more complex and the scene doesn't really work with what I want to teach you, but we're going to be using this node right here. So on the shape node of the camera, just remember that we have this Arnold option where we're going to be able to change things around. One very important thing, this is super, super important. You never, ever, ever want to scale the camera. You should always keep the scale of the camera set to 1. If we're working with a really big scene and the camera is really, really small, what you're going to do is you're going to go to Object Display, and the locator scale, you can change this one. Like, I don't know, let's go to like a 10. So now the camera is going to be bigger. It's going to be a little bit easier to select, but we're not scaling the camera. You should not scale the camera because that will modify the way the focal length and all of the other things work, and that's going to give you a really, really weird result on the final renders. So yeah, I'm gonna save real quick, and that's it. We're ready to jump onto the actual like cinematography of this shot. We're gonna be looking at some reference, and we're gonna be using that reference to create a very, very cool shot. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye bye.